Hey y'all, welcome to another edition of the Right Pour podcast. Hopefully y'all went out and watched the Battle of the Bonded video that we posted recently where we put 4 bottle and bonds together and see which one won. Well, this right here was the winner. This Hazelbaker bottle and bond was absolutely amazing. Now this one comes out of Kentucky, but as you can see here, we also have a bottle and bond Hazelbaker from Indiana. So yes, they have sourced this one and they have made their own distillate here. So we're gonna just talk about the two together here. I think they're absolutely fantastic. Now, Hazelbaker, have you heard of them? If you haven't, I guarantee you've heard of the other brand that they put out called Nulu. So this is from PCS Distilling, and they produce the well-known Nulu brand. Now, there has been some controversy that I found on Instagram that I talked about in the last episode as well, where people are saying that they are true NDPs. Some are saying they're not. Well, this one right here, this Kentucky one right here, is from PCS Distilling. It says on the back of the label, distilled by PCS Distilling, as well as barreled and aged, of course. So they have been doing their own distillate for obviously at least 6 years. This right here is absolutely phenomenal. Now, we drank this one down a little bit more than the other one because it was part of the blind, but this one is just as delicious. And to me, this 7 year that we get from Indiana is absolutely amazing. I think it drinks a little bit higher than its typical age statement of 7 years. And this 6 year also drinks a little bit more rich as well. So let's dive into them and discuss how good they really are. Now, I'm going to pour both of these so we can compare them side by side when needed. And I got to say, the color difference alone is pretty dang impressive. Being that they are supposedly only 1 year apart by the age statement, these are just quite the difference in color. Now, it shows up quite a bit better on the bottles here. Like, you can definitely see this color difference for sure. But in the Glen, it's not as noticeable, but it's not as distinct, but it's still noticeable at least. Now we're going to start with the one that won. So this is the Kentucky juice that is distilled, aged, everything by PCS Distilling. I don't know the mash bill. I have not been able to find it. Maybe I didn't dive deep enough into it to figure it out, but it is just so good. Like, it's just this nice, rich. Now, I don't remember my notes from the Battle of the Bonded, but right now I'm getting a nice little bit of, I'm actually getting a little bit more popcorn. That's a little bit different than what I remember for sure. I think this opened up a little bit more now that it's been drank down just a touch more. But I'm getting a little bit of like nice popcorn, a little bit of that oakiness as well. A soft oak at that, but it's absolutely delicious on the nose. Like, this is just very inviting, very crisp as well. It's got a very unique nose to it. Man, on the palate, it is just rich with flavor. It's got a nice oiliness to it. It's got that long lasting finish. I'm getting a good bit of caramel, a little bit of vanilla on the back end, um, and really far on the back end as the finish lingers, I'm getting a nice baking spice as well. Like, it's not overwhelming by any means. It's just a nice little hint of warmth, and not necessarily from the proof because it is only 100 proof, but like a baking spice warmth. It is very delicious. I got a little bit of a roller coaster ride, which I really like. It's got that like kind of levels that you're looking for where, you take a sip and you're like, oh wait, it's changing a little bit, changing a little bit more. So like as you sit there and sip it with your friends and during conversation and hanging out, you're going to get the complexity. And I feel like a lot of bottle and bonds these days don't have that complexity, but this one certainly does, which I think is very unique and very different and really stands out. Now, these bottles are a little bit more expensive, and I'm not opposed to that. Usually I'm like, hey, let's make them a little bit cheaper, but this right here, I'm not opposed to buying another bottle on the price. In my area, I think they're around 70 out the door after tax. I'd pay that again, knowing that the Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond is around the $50 mark, and now the new Old Fitz, which did not stand the test of the Battle of the Bonded, is around that $70 mark. These are significantly better. They're more rich. They're more decadent. Now, that Old Fitz is a 7 year age stated, just like this one right here, but it does not have nearly the complexity. It still has a great bit of flavor, don't get me wrong. It's just not the same. And maybe that's because I'm more of a little bit of a craft person, and that's what this is leading into. But man, this Hazelbaker is absolutely delicious, especially the one coming out of Kentucky that they have distilled on their own distillate. Yeah, man, those flavors are so unique, so different, and this is an absolute sleeper. I think this is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be one of the top 5 bottles of the year, but I definitely think it will be within the top 5 of bottled and bond bottles of the year for sure. I think this is definitely something that will stand the test of time here, that will give you everything you're looking for with some nice flavors and aromas as well, so you can enjoy the experience to its fullest without breaking the bank, but also not getting a super high proof. That's gonna limit you to what you want to drink for the night. It's going to allow you to have a couple pours and not feel so bad about it for sure. Now, moving on to the Hazelbaker Indiana 7-year. So obviously this one is sourced, and to check the back of the label here, it is distilled by MGP, which I love how they like very specifically disclose that. A lot of times we all know when you're going with an MGP, they say, hey, distilled in Indiana. You can take a solid guess and say, yeah, obviously that's going to be an MGP product. But I like how they're very transparent and just like, yeah, obviously it's an MGP. They put it on there. There's no hiding it. Simple as that. Why say just Indiana when we all know it's MGP? But this is bottled by PCS Distilling. It doesn't say where it's aged though. And that's my only gripe here. It says it is distilled by MGP, bottled by Hazelbaker or PCS Distilling. So was it aged at MGP? Was it aged in Kentucky, like Louisville, or was it aged in both? Did they age a little bit over in Indiana and then transport the barrels down from there? I don't know. I kind of wish they did tell you that. At least they're giving us the age statement of 7 years. And the fact that this is so dark, so rich, it is absolutely delicious. Personally, I prefer this one. This 7-year age statement, only 1 year different. Now, granted, different distillates, MGP distillate, where we're talking about the PCS distillate here, but the age statement, this 7-year just drinks so delicious and higher on its age. Even though it's the 100 proof, it still has that complexity, right? So we're getting, in my opinion, we're getting a nice bit of that richness that you could tell me this is like a 10-year, and I'd be like, yeah, that sounds fairly accurate. I think it's a little bit more rich and more flavorful and more complex than the Eagle Rare 10-year. You know, for only 10 proof points more, this is definitely way more complex than a lot of other bourbons. Heck, even the E.H. Taylor is not nearly as complex as this one. And I think that really shows on the quality of the stuff that they are using, even though they are sourcing this 7-year from MGP. Like we got in the 6-year here, that popcorn like flavors, maybe a little bit of cocoa. I'm getting a lot more of that richness, that toffee, that dark oak, but it's like I know it's weird. It's gonna be like a soft dark oak, you know. You're getting that like deep oak flavor without it being overpowering and like in your face and just very abundant. But it's got a really good rich flavor to it on the nose, of course. Now, being that this is a high rye bourbon as well, there is not a ton of like spice that I'm getting here, which is very nice. Like I love a good high rye. Actually, I've been leaning more towards the ryes lately of as well, but this one is not super spicy on the nose. It doesn't burn your nostrils, whether it be the ethanol or the rye spices, but you can tell that it has that like interesting note now that it's been diluted down to, or sorry, proof down to that 100 proof. It's easy to tell that it's a high rye without being like in your face and overpowering and burning and whatnot. It has that very unique different flavor compared to this 6-year, which I really do appreciate on this one. On the palate, this is a lot different than the 6-year. It is way less of a finish. So for me, the 6-year, the finish definitely lingered quite a bit longer. And I think this high rye is making the finish a little bit shorter to like a medium length finish, but it makes you want to come back for more because it does have a little bit less of a roller coaster ride, but it has a very impactful flavor. So I'm getting cocoa, I'm getting the rye spices, being that it is a high rye. I think on the finish here, it has just a nice medium finish that makes you want to come back for more, but you're not going to sit there and put it down for, you know, 5-10 minutes to go back to the next one because the finish is so long. I actually appreciate how this finish is a little bit more on the medium side. As much as I do love this 6-year and that nice long oily rich finish, this one's a little bit more dry, and I think that is due to that high rye. but it's so dang good. I think this is a little bit of a sleeper. To me, this actually does sip a little bit higher than the 7-year age statement. So it's got that complexity. So if you put this in a blind like we did with this 6-year, it's just a little bit more decadent. It's a little bit more rich. It just has that quality that you're looking for without being craft. I think this has got I think both of these actually have a really good balance of not quite craft distillery, but not quite run of the mill stuff. So, I think that y'all should go find some of these Hazelbakers. If you see them in the wild, I definitely recommend picking them up. I get it. They're a little bit more pricey. There's no doubt about that. They're a little bit higher than the Heaven Hill bottle and bond for a 7-year. But I think there's a lot more complexity and flavor to them that lets you explore your palate a little bit more. I think there's so dang good. They're nice, they're rich, they're decadent. It is unique. It doesn't have that craft funk. And I think it bridges the gap of that craftiness and that funkiness that a lot of people are a little scared to reach into, but also giving you that like comfort flavors that you're like, okay, I know what to expect on that one. And this bridges that gap so nicely. So, in my opinion, if y'all can go get a Hazelbaker 7-year Indiana or a 6-year Kentucky, I highly recommend it. They are definitely worth the price. They're unique, they're powerful in their flavors, and they definitely will give you a really good introduction to more rich flavors without burning your palate or anything else really on a higher proof. Definitely one of the most unique and flavorful 100 proof bottle and bods I've ever had. So, till next time, cheers, y'all.